Shalom, shalom, shalom. Today I would like to come from the book of, I'm going to be talking about Abraham's birth, the night that Abraham was born, and how his servants, the servants of Terah, which was Abraham's father. And you're going to see that Abraham's birth is a Christ like birth, so similar. So, anyways, this is coming out of, this is going to be coming out of Jasher chapter 8. Um, and I think it's like 30 some verses. But I'm going to run through them, not really fast, but just wanted to give you an idea, if you've never read Jasher 8, how close his birth was to Yeshua HaMashiach. And also, I thought what I would do is find how many times Christ quoted about Abraham. And it looked like there was about 10 times, and most of it was in chapter in Luke, the book of Luke. Then John 4 times that Christ spoke of Abraham. And then from Act on, the apostle also quoted um, Abraham, his history, his faith in Christ, and so forth. So I'm going to start reading right now. It says, and it was in the night that Abraham was born that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurors came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night. So here you have wise men of Nimrod come to Terah, because they're the servants of Nimrod, to come to Terah's house to get homage or to recognize Abraham's birth. And then 2 says, verse 2, it says, let me go, my thing be acting up. And when all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted their eyes towards the heavens that night to look at the stars. And they saw, and behold, one very large star came from the east, and ran in heaven, in the heavens, and ran in the heavens, and he swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heaven. You have this huge star, and he swallowed up the other 4 stars that was in the 4 corners of the earth. There's so much about the 4 corners of the earth when it comes down to Yeshua's God's people and so forth, but that's a whole different story. It says, and all the wise men, let's go back. So the stars, remember in the story of Jesus, and that's found in Matthew chapter 2, and that's through 9 through 12. It talks about that the wise men was directed by a star to Bethlehem, and they went there to worship Yeshua HaMashiach and offer their presence. The same thing that these servants of Nimrod that came to Terah's home to acknowledge Abraham's birth. Okay, so it talks about the stars here. So in Christ's birth, in Matthew 2, chapter 9, it says, when they had heard, talking about the wise men, heard the king, they departed, and lo, the stars which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. 10. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. 11. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasure, they presented unto his gifts golds and frankincense and myrrh. 12. And being warned of Elohim in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. So although this doesn't say that they bow down to Abraham, it just says in verse 1, and it was in the night that Abraham was born that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men, the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurer came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night because of his son birth Abraham, or Abram at that time. Verse 3 says, and all the wise men of the king and his conjurer was astonished at the sight, And the sages understood this matter, and they knew it importance. They knew the importance of Abraham's birth, just like the three wise men knew the importance of Christ's birth. Okay. Then verse 4, trying to go down to verse 4, it says, and they said to each other, this only betoken the child that has been born to Terah this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever. And he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit the land. Now there's a king going on. We're going to be run up on a king that had that same attitude that Herod had when Christ was born. He wanted to kill him. Well, this king is going to also tell Terah to kill his son. Let him kill his son or give him up for some gold and silver. But anyway, let's go on. This is verse 5. And the wise men and conjurer home, um, went home that night, and in the morning all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house. So the wise men and the conjurers went home that night, the same like the other wise men. After they finished paying homage to Christ and the father and the mother, they had a dream. God told them to go their separate ways. They got up and went their separate ways. In verse 6, it says, verse 6, it says, and they spoke and said to each other, behold, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from the king. It has not been made known to him. Okay, so they're afraid that the king gonna find out before they tell him, so they're rushing to go tell the king. Verse 7. And should this thing get known to the king in the latter days, he will say to us, why have you concealed this matter from me? And then we shall all suffer death. Therefore, now let's go and tell the king the sight which we saw and the interpretation thereof, and we shall then remain clear. So they're going to go to the king. They're going to explain that they went to give, I guess, homage to their friend Terah, or their friend Terah's child Abram, because they're afraid if they didn't tell them, they would be killed, obviously. So they go to the king, verse 8, and they did so, and they all went to the king and bowed down to him to the ground, and they said, may the king live, may the king live. But they really respected those kings back then. Them kings, I guess, they weren't playing back then. Verse verse 9, it says, we heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of thy host, and we yesternight came to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. Now, if you go look at some of the lessons I did on Abraham from a book from this young lady, well, she's an anthropologist, and she's done like 30 years of research on the biblical characters of the Bible, and she used archaeology, migration. She used DNA. Well, she said she used a migration DNA, um, some others, some other items that she used. But anyways, go look at some of the videos I did on Abraham, how he came from a priesthood, what they call caste or Horites, which equals Hebrew in English. And that, so in essence, Abraham was a priest long before Yeshua HaMashiach, not Yeshua, but the Most High called him um, to be the leader of the chosen seed. So, anyways, you may want to go look at some of those videos I did on him, and even do you may want to also go and research or look at some of her research as well, because she's online. It's called Genesis. The Genesis is called by Lindsay Allen C. Lindsay is her name. And other scholars also. She has some of their writings too. Um, so anyway, so verse 9 said, we heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of thy host, and We yesterday came to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced in him that night. 10. And when thy servant went out from the house of Terah to go to our prospective homes to abide there for the night, we lift up our eyes to heaven, and we saw a great star. And this is what they're telling the king. The king getting ready to get pissed and scared too, I think. um, it says, in 10 again, it says, and when thy servant went out from the house of Terah to go to our prospective homes to abide there for the night, we lift up our eyes to heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east, and the same star ran with great speed and swallowed four great stars from the four sides of the heavens. Now I wonder if there's something to that, but I won't. I'm not going to try to figure it out right now. And then it goes on to say, this is the servant talking to the king that brought to his attention that there was a child that was born to him. Says, and thy servant, 11, and thy servant were astonished at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified. And we made our judgment upon the night, and knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation thereof, that this thing applies. I don't know what I keep doing that. This thing applies to the child that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly. Not only multiply greatly, but he will become he become powerful. And check this out, and kill all the kings of the earth and inherit all the land he had to see. I'm sorry. So I can understand why the king was spooked and afraid at the same time. But look what the king gonna try to do, y'all. It just sounds just like Herod. I'm telling you. Now we know that Joseph and Mary fled into Egypt with Jesus and the mother, because Herod was trying to slay Christ. So this is the same thing this king want to do to Terah's son Abram. And because they told them the whole interpretation of the dream, not only did they tell them the dream, but they told them the interpretation of the dream. So I think that's what scared the king. But anyway, as 12 says, and then they go on to say, and then they go on to say, and now our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted thee with what we have seen concerning this child. Oh Lord have mercy. Um, so let's go on. Then I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with my thing here. Okay, so 12, and let me get down to 12. Um, then 13. Um, let's do this again. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is really getting on my nerves. Okay, there you go. Don't go too far up. I just download this app, so it's kind of slow. Okay, 13. And if it seemeth good to the king to give, if it seems good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him because before he shall grow up, increase in the land, and his evil increase against us, that we and our children perish through his evil. Wait, let me go back to 12. So they said in 12, and now our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted thee with what we have seen concerning this child. 13, if it seemeth good, wow, they was going to kill Terah's son just because they was afraid they going to die. Doesn't sound like it. Says 13 says, and if it seemeth good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he should grow up and increase in the land, and his evil increase against us, that we and our children perish through his evil. 14, um, it says, and the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight. So he was glad to hear what they wanted to kill the son. And he sent and called for Terah, and Terah came before the king. 15. And the king said to Terah, I have been told that a son was yesternight born to thee, and after this manner was observed in the heavens at his birth. 16. And now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil spring up against us, and I will give thee for his value thy house full of silver and gold. So he want to pay silver and gold for Terah to give over his son so he can kill him. After these wicked men um, suggested it. 17, it says, And Terah answered the king and said to him, My lord and king, I have heard thy words, and thy servants shall do all this king desired. And Terah answered the king and said to him, 17, My lord and king, I have heard thy words, and thy servant shall do all that his king desireth. Okay, so now sound like he's ready to do what Abraham was willing to do to his son when God asked um, Abraham to kill his son, Isaac. And Terah answered the king and said to him, My lord and king, I have heard thy words, and thy servant shall do all his king desireth. And 18 it says, But my lord, 18, let me point it out down here. It's 18. But my lord and king, I will tell thee what happened to me yesternight, that I may see what advice the king will give his servant. And then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken. And the king said, Speak. Now the king is not ready for about what the king is not ready with what Terah is about to hit him with. He's gonna get even more pissed off. He's gonna walk off with an attitude and come back with vengeance. It says 19, and Terah said to the king, Ayan, son of Mored, came to me yesternight saying, verse 20, Give unto me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave thee. So Terah said to the king that Ayan, the son of Mored, came to him and said, Look, I give you silver and gold for this beautiful horse that the king gave you. And draw and straw and provender for his value, and said to him, Wait until I see the king. So Terah told him, Look, wait until I see the king and see what he's going to think about it. It says, Wait until I see the king concerning thy words, and behold, whatever the king saith, that I will do. So this is Terah telling the king the story about someone wanting to buy a horse that he gave him, a very expensive horse. And look how the king responds. 21. It says, 21 says, And now, my lord and king, behold, I have made this thing known to thee, and the advice which my king will give unto his servant that I will follow. 22. And the king heard the word of Terah, and his anger was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool. 23. And the king answered Terah and said unto him, 23, Art thou so silly, ignorant, deficient in understanding to do this thing, to give that beautiful horse for silver and gold, or even for straw and provender? 24, Art thou so short of silver and gold that thou shouldst do this thing, because thou canst not obtain a straw and provender to feed thy house? And what is silver and gold to thee, or straw and provender, that thou shouldst give away thy fine horse which I gave thee, like which there is none to be had on the whole earth. So it must have been a really expensive, not only an expensive horse, but a horse that he also took value in, took pride in. So then 25 says, the king goes on to say, and the king left off speaking. So he went out pissed off. He said, and the king left off speaking, and Terah answered the king, saying, Like unto this has the king spoken to his servant. So he says, Like unto you spoken to me about you giving me silver and gold for my son. He goes on to 26 and says, I beseech thee, my Lord and King, what is this which thou didst say unto me, saying, give thy son that we may slay him? This is 26. Oh, I went too far up. I hate this. This is a crazy app, you all. Excuse me. I gotta go back. 26. I beseech thee. It's 26 here. Okay. This is acting up really bad. I beseech thee. I'm on 26. I beseech thee, my Lord and King. What is this which thou hast did which thou didst say unto me, saying, give thy son that we may slay him, and I will give thee silver and gold for his value. What shall I do with silver and gold after the death of my son? Who shall inherit me? Who shall inherit me? Surely then at my death the silver and gold will return to my king who gave it. So he said, well, he end up going back to you anyway. You're gonna give it to me, but it's gonna go back to you. 27. Oh, I hate this thing. It's really acting up, and I'm just so like, oh. Okay, 27. 27. It says, and when the king heard the word of Terah and the parable which he brought concerning the king, it grieved him greatly, and he was vexed at this thing, and his anger burned within him. So I guess he got ticked off because he told him, why would you ask me to give silver and gold for my son, and you're going to be pissed off because someone offered me silver and gold for a horse. So 28 says, and Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him. This is 28. I don't know why this is acting up, y'all. I really don't. So 28 says, and Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him, and he answered the king, saying, all that I have is in the king's power. Whatever the king desires to do to his servant, that let him do. Yea, even my son, he is in the king's power. Without value in exchange, he and his two brothers that are older than he. And the 29, and the king said to Terah, no, but I would purchase thy younger son for a price. So he still wanted Abram because the servants told him, the king, how powerful and that how great Abram would become. So he got afraid and wanted to kill him. Um, that's what they do back then. They would take kill the sons because they break off the stud, stop the seed. It says in 30 says, and Terah answered the king, saying, I beseech thee, my lord and king, to let thy servant speak a word before thee, and let the king hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, let my king give me 3 days till I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my family concerning the word of my king. And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. 31. And the king hearkened to Terah, and he did so, and he gave him 3 days' time. And Terah went out from the king's presence, and he came home to his family, and spoke to them all the words of the king, and the people were greatly afraid. 32. And it was in the 3rd day that the king sent to Terah, saying, send me thy son for a price, as I spoke to thee. And shouldst thou not do this, I will send and slay all thou hast in thy house, so that thou shalt not even have a dog remaining. And Terah hastened, as the thing was urgent from the king. And this is 33. And he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaid had borne to him that day. And Terah brought the child to the king and received value for him. So he didn't even know, but the fact that another child's life was taken. 34. And the Lord was with Terah in this matter. So the Lord approved of it, of him taking a servant handmaid's child and gave to the king. 34. And the Lord was with Terah in this matter, that Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the king took the child from Terah, and with all his might he dashed his head to the ground. This is the king. he was evil, dashed his head to the ground, for he thought it had been Abram. And this was concealed from him from that day, and it was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of the providence not to suffer Abram's death. So it was already designed in God's hand because God was going to call Abraham anyway. 35. And Terah took Abram his son secretly together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them their provisions monthly. So brought them food and stuff that they needed, personal items, clothing, linen. 36. And Yahuwah was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up, and Abram was in the cave 10 years. And the king and his princes, soothsayers and sages, thought that the king had killed Abram. So he really thought that he had did what he wanted to do to Abram to stop Abram from becoming a great man and his seed from becoming a great nation. Because he was afraid, I guess, not for himself, but for his seed. So, anyways, I thought that that was an interesting story because it is coordinate with Yeshua's birth, his death, not his death, but his birth, and him being seeked out to be killed by Herod. And they talk about the wise men that went and gave homage to the Yeshua Hamashiach, just like there were wise men that went to Terah's house to get homage to Abraham's birth. So their birth was similar. It was, I didn't know that. See, this is why they take out these apocryphas and all these books out of the Bible. I wouldn't have never knew that Abraham's birth was similar to Christ's birth, but that's what they do. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you all. I thought it was very interesting. So I say shalom and have a wonderful remaining Sabbath.